The cold wind blew across Dock Station 9. Jax pulled his jacket tighter. The fabric torn at the edges, worn from years of mining work. He stood near the shuttle gate, holding a small metal ticket. His last one-way pass to the Central Trade Planet. A loudspeaker announced the final boarding call, but Jax didn't move. He stared at the stars through the glass dome, wondering what life might feel like away from the dust and danger of this broken moon. Then he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned and saw two alien girls standing there, shivering, both dressed in ragged cloaks that looked stitched from cargo bags. They looked young, maybe late teens, but their eyes told a different story. The taller one had dark purple skin, glowing faintly under the station lights, and strange silver markings on her neck. The smaller one had pale blue skin and wide, shining eyes full of fear. "Please," the tall one whispered, stepping closer. "We don't have money for the tickets, human, but we'll compensate you." Jax blinked, unsure what he just heard. The girl repeated herself, more firmly this time. "We can't explain now, but if you help us, we promise it won't be for nothing." Before he could answer, the station guard eyed them suspiciously. From afar, slowly walking toward their direction, Jax's gut twisted. He could walk away, get on the shuttle, and leave this strange scene behind. He had no credits to spare, no strength to waste. But something about the younger girl's trembling hands made him pause. He sighed and reached into his pocket, pulling out 2 additional tickets. He had hidden emergency passes he never meant to use. He handed them to the tall girl. "You better not be lying," he muttered. She gave a nod, eyes serious. "We're not." The guard came closer, but Jax quickly waved the tickets and motioned to the girls. "They're with me," the guard grunted, then turned away. Uninterested moments. Later, the 3 of them stepped onto the shuttle ramp, disappearing into the crowd of passengers. Inside the shuttle, Jax found them seats far in the back, near the engine wall. He sat across from the girls, crossing his arms, watching them. "So," he began, "you gonna tell me what that was about?" The tall one hesitated, then looked around carefully before speaking. "My name is Vera. This is my sister Lyra," she said. "We were being watched, and we didn't have time to ask for help properly." Jax raised an eyebrow. "Watched by who?" Vera lowered her voice. "Bad people, powerful ones. We escaped from them recently." Lyra clutched her sister's arm tightly, her eyes darting nervously around the shuttle. Jax felt a weight settle in his chest. He didn't want to be involved in anything dangerous, but he also knew it was too late to back out now. Vera leaned closer and said, "You saved our lives back there, human, and we won't forget it." Jax shrugged, trying to act like it meant nothing. "I'm just tired of seeing people kicked around." As the shuttle began to rise, a soft hum filled the air, and stars appeared in the window. They were leaving the mining moon behind, but something told Jax the real trouble was just beginning. During the ride, Vera offered him a small piece of dried fruit from her cloak. He hesitated, then took it, nodding politely. Lyra finally spoke, her voice soft like wind through broken glass. "Do you have a family?" Jax looked out the window, then said, "Not anymore." Vera looked at him carefully, as if trying to read his pain. "You have a kind heart," she said, "but the galaxy doesn't reward kindness." Jax let out a dry laugh. "Tell me something." "I don't know." Then something strange happened. A light shimmered on Vera's neck, just under her collarbone. Something not natural, like a pulse of energy. Jax stared. "What's that?" Vera quickly covered it, shaking her head. "Later," she said. "We'll explain later." The shuttle jolted slightly, the lights flickering. A voice on the intercom spoke calmly. "Minor turbulence. Please remain seated." But Jax noticed something different. Out the window, a small ship was flying too close. No markings, moving fast. Vera saw it too, her expression turning sharp. "They found us," she whispered. Jax clenched his fists, heart pounding. He had no idea what he just stepped into, but it was too late to get off now. Asterisk. The shuttle lights dimmed as it slipped through the star lanes. Jock sat still, his back against the seat, but his eyes locked on the dark ship following them outside the window. It flew too close, drifting like a shadow, quiet but watching. The engines of the shuttle hummed, but something in the air felt wrong. Vera leaned toward Jocks without turning her head, her voice low. "Don't act alarmed, but we need to move soon." Lyra clutched Vera's cloak tightly. Her small hands shaking, Jocks whispered back, "You said later, it's later now. Tell me what's going on." Vera's face was tight, the glow under her skin pulsing faintly again. "That ship is theirs," she said. "The ones who want what's inside me." Jack swallowed hard. "You mean information?" She nodded slowly. "It's locked in me, buried in my blood and bones. Ancient, forbidden, and stolen." The shuttle hit turbulence again, this time stronger, causing a few passengers to gasp. Jack stood up, moving down the aisle casually, motioning for the girls to follow. They passed quiet rows of people, unaware of the danger just outside their windows. Jax led them toward the back storage area near the cargo pods. Pretending to check his bag, Vera and Lyra slipped inside a small utility room, and Jax followed quickly, sealing the door. The lights flickered again, this time with a red tint. An automated voice calmly spoke. "Unidentified vessel approaching. Maintain course." Jax turned to Vera. "What are they going to do?" Vera's eyes were sharp, her voice steady. "They're not going to wait for permission to board. They'll force their way in." Lyra suddenly pointed at the wall screen, her voice trembling. "They're locking the shuttle signal, jamming." Jocks looked at the screen. It was static now, and the view outside was gone. The strange ship had vanished from sight, but they all knew it hadn't left. Jocks checked the emergency panel beside the storage crates, looking for something useful, anything at all. Vera pulled a small tool from her belt and began opening a vent cover. "We can crawl into the maintenance shafts," she said. "If they board from the front, we can slip to the rear escape pod." Jax raised an eyebrow. "There's an escape pod?" Lyra gave a tiny smile. "Most passengers never notice it, but we've studied shuttle layouts." Before he could argue, a sharp metal clang echoed through the ship. A woman screamed from the main cabin. Then silence. Jax grabbed a wrench and followed the sisters into the narrow metal tunnel. The air inside was hot and dry, smelling of burnt oil and dust. Jax crawled after them, sweat running down his neck, his thoughts racing. He didn't sign up for this. Yet he couldn't walk away now, not when they were in danger. A sudden bang below them shook the walls. Someone or something had entered the shuttle. Jax heard boots clanging against the floor, heavy and fast. A deep alien voice growled orders, muffled by the walls but filled with cruel authority. Vera turned back, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "They have a scanner. We have to move faster." They reached a small maintenance room, cramped and dark, filled with broken parts and coolant tubes. Vera quickly tapped on a control panel, rerouting the door locks of the shuttle. "It will slow them down for maybe 60 seconds, she said, her hands shaking now too. Lyra looked at Jax. "You didn't have to help us. You still don't. Why do you?" Jax looked between the two girls, then back toward the crawl space they came from. He took a breath and said, "Because someone should." Vera paused, then gave a small nod. "Then you're one of the good ones." Suddenly, metal creaked behind them. Someone else had entered the shaft. A flashlight beam swept past the vent hole, stopping just inches from Jax's foot. They all froze, holding their breath. A mechanical voice hissed. "Thermal readings confirm target proximity." Vera pulled something from her pocket, a flat circular disc, and placed it gently on the vent wall. It flashed blue, then buzzed softly, creating a field of distorted heat. The scanner paused, confused, the light flickering. Then it moved on. Jax exhaled slowly, wiping sweat from his forehead. They crawled down a final passage that opened behind a locked panel, leading straight to the rear of the shuttle. The emergency pod stood ready, small, round, just big enough for three. Vera began hacking the lock, fingers flying, her lips moving. Silently as she worked, Jack stood guard, holding the wrench tight in his hand. Then the door behind them hissed open. 2 armored figures stood there, tall, faceless, and armed. The first one aimed a weapon at Vera, but before he could fire, Jax threw the wrench, striking the mask with a loud crack. The figure stumbled, and Vera slammed her hand on the pod's control. A blinding flash filled the corridor as the emergency pod launched. Jax, Vera, and Lyra were thrown backward inside the tiny capsule. As they tumbled into darkness, Lyra let out a shocked breath. "Did we make it?" Jax coughed, then looked at the sisters. "I don't know," he said, "but we're alive." And the stars outside the window rushed past them. The pod was spinning, and for a moment, Jax couldn't tell which way was up. The stars outside twisted like ribbons, and a deep ringing echoed in his ears. Then, with a sudden jolt, the pod leveled out. Engine stabilizing, he blinked and found himself crushed between the 2 alien girls. All 3 pressed tightly in the tiny space. Lyra groaned softly. "My head hurts." Vera reached over to check her sister's forehead, her fingers glowing just faintly. "She's okay," Vera said. "Just the impact." Jax leaned back, breathing hard, his hands still trembling from the moment he threw the wrench. "I can't believe that worked," he muttered. "You got lucky," Vera replied, her voice calm but her eyes serious. "And now we need more luck." He looked at the console inside the pod. It was flashing red. "Systems damaged." "Where are we even going?" he asked. The pod was pre-programmed to land on a nearby junk moon. Vera said, "Low traffic, low attention." Jax frowned. "That doesn't sound very safe." "That's why it's good," she answered. "No patrols, no scanners. Just trash and quiet." Minutes later, the pod pierced through a thin atmosphere and slammed into a pile of broken metal. The hatch popped open with a hiss, letting in air that smelled like rust and burnt circuits. Jax crawled out first, then helped. The sisters climbed down. They stood in the middle of a graveyard of old ships, crushed containers, and giant metal bones. The sky was orange with mist, the ground soft with ash and oil. Lyra sneezed, and Jax looked around. "So now what?" Vera pointed toward a broken ship in the distance. Its tower half collapsed but still standing. "That," she said. "We make shelter there. Then I explain everything." The walk was short but quiet, the only sounds coming from old machines groaning in the wind. Inside the wreck, they found a small control room still intact, with a floor made of dusty glass and blinking lights that no longer served any purpose. Jax sat down and waited, arms crossed. Vera stood in the middle of the room, facing him, while Lyra curled up in a corner and watched silently. "What I carry," Vera began, "isn't just data." She took a breath, then pulled down part of her cloak to reveal the glowing pattern on her skin again. It was brighter now, pulsing gently. Jax leaned closer, noticing small symbols shifting under the light. "It's called a living sigil," she said. "An ancient code passed through blood, not machines." Jax frowned. "So you're what? A storage device?" Vera shook her head. "I'm a key. To what?" "To a weapon," she answered. "Or maybe a miracle, depending on who uses it." Jax stood up slowly. "That's why they're after you," she nodded. "They want to extract it and use it for power." He looked over at Lyra, who was now playing with a broken circuit board, trying to fit pieces together like a puzzle. Vera sat down across from Jax, tiredness showing in her eyes. "We were born in a lab," she said. "Part organic, part something older, designed to hold this key." Jax was silent for a long time, then finally said, "Why tell me all this?" "Because you helped us," Vera replied. "And because we need you." Jax laughed once, bitterly. "I'm just a miner with no credits and a busted jacket." "But you're not a coward," she said. "And you haven't run." Lyra looked up suddenly, her eyes wide. "Someone's coming." Jax jumped to his feet and rushed to the broken window, looking out across the junk fields. A light blinked in the distance blue, steady, moving fast. "They found the pod," Vera said. Standing up beside him, "No way they tracked us this fast," Jax replied. "They didn't need to," she answered. "The emergency pod sends out a beacon if not turned off." Jax cursed under his breath. "I knew I forgot something." They packed quickly, grabbing scraps and tools from the wreck. Vera slung a bag over her shoulder. Lyra stuffed wires into her pouch, and Jax picked up a long metal pipe. "Where are we going?" he asked. Vera pointed to a massive cargo hauler lying on its side far off in the haze. "If we can reach that and get inside, there's a hidden docking shuttle in the belly. And if it doesn't work?" Jax asked. Vera smiled faintly. "Then we improvise." They ran, boots crunching over broken glass and metal, the blue light behind them growing larger. Lyra stumbled once, and Jax caught her without stopping, pulling her along. By the time they reached the hauler, the light was close enough to see the shape behind it, an armored craft with sharp wings and red markings. Jax looked at Vera. "Time to tell me, what exactly is this compensation you two promised me?" Vera grabbed his hand and looked into his eyes. "A chance to change the stars." And then the ground beneath them rumbled. The enemy ship was landing. The first thing Jax noticed was the silence before the blast. A quiet stillness, as if even the junk around them held its breath. Then came the roar, shaking the ground beneath their feet as the enemy ship descended like a black hawk from the clouds. Vera didn't flinch, her grip on Jax's hand tightening. Lyra stood behind them, her eyes glowing faintly as if sensing something deep and dangerous. The cargo hauler's belly loomed ahead, its rusted metal ribs forming a path to a shadowed hatch. Jax ran first, jumping over twisted pipes and broken crates, his breath sharp in his lungs. Behind him, the enemy ship opened its landing arms like claws, steam hissing from the sides. They reached the hatch, and Vera pressed her palm against an old biometric panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door creaked open with a reluctant sigh. They slipped inside, just as the first enemy drone hovered down from the sky. Inside the hauler, the air was thick with dust and memories. Old crates labeled in dead languages lined the walls, and spider-like cables hung from the ceiling. Jax followed Vera through the maze, deeper into the old machine. "What are we looking for?" he asked between breaths. "A maintenance lift," she said. "It'll take us to the shuttle bay below." Lyra pointed to a cracked floor panel. "It's here." Vera knelt down, pried it open, and revealed a narrow metal tunnel beneath. They dropped down one by one, Jax going last, the hatch closing above him with a clang. As they climbed into the belly of the hauler, the lights flickered on, weak but alive. The maintenance lift was waiting, covered in grime but operational. Lyra pressed a button, and the platform began to lower, groaning with age. Suddenly, the comm panel crackled to life with a voice. "Give us the carriers," the voice said, deep and smooth, "and we will let the human walk free." Jax looked at Vera, who didn't react, her eyes locked on the darkness below. "You hear that?" he asked. "They know I'm with you. They've always known," she replied. "But they don't understand you." The lift reached the bottom, revealing a small shuttle parked under hanging lights. It was scratched and dusty, but it looked space-worthy. Jax ran to check the engines while Lyra climbed inside to power the systems. Vera stood at the entrance, facing the shadows, her body tense. "They'll come through the walls if they have to," she whispered. "They don't care about damage." Jax opened a panel near the engine and began rerouting power from emergency reserves. "I can buy us time," he said. "But this ship hasn't flown in years," Lyra called out. "Weapons are online but limited, and shields are half dead. Just..." Then, a thump echoed from above, followed by metal footsteps crawling down the corridor. Jax grabbed a nearby tool and tossed it to Vera. "If they come close, swing hard." She caught it and gave a nod. The glow under her skin now bright enough to light the room. Lyra shouted, "They're overriding the external locks." The shuttle's lights blinked twice, then held steady. "Engine's ready," Jack said. "We just need a clear path." Vera ran to the side panel and opened a cargo gate, revealing an old rail launcher meant for firing crates into space. "It's risky," she said. "But if we launch using this, we bypass the upper hatch." Jax climbed into the pilot seat, hands shaking but firm. Lyra jumped into the co-pilot chair, strapping in tight. Vera stayed behind for a second, staring back at the darkness of the hauler. "They will never stop chasing us," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Then she climbed aboard and sealed the hatch. Jax pressed the final sequence, and the rail began to charge. The enemy broke through just as the shuttle shot forward. Metal screamed, the walls blurred. And then they were in the sky again. Fire followed behind them, the hauler exploding in the distance like a dying star. Inside the shuttle, everything shook, panels bursting, alarms screaming. Jax held the controls tight, flying by instinct, not skill. "Where now?" he shouted. Vera leaned over his shoulder, eyes glowing with purpose. "There's one place left," she said, "where we might find someone who can decode me safely, and who won't sell you to the highest bidder." Jax asked, "That's the gamble," she replied. Lyra pointed at the stars, one blinking green in the distance. "That's the one, the old watchtower." Jax aimed the shuttle toward it, the stars stretching into lines around them, behind them. Silence returned, but it was the kind of silence that follows a promise of more chaos. Jax finally looked at Vera and said, "Back at the station, you promised compensation." Vera smiled faintly, resting a hand on his shoulder. "I did," she said, "and if we survive this, you'll understand what we meant." And the stars outside the window kept pulling them forward. Jax never meant to care this much, but when the enemy ship caught up and tore the sky open with its silent missiles, and Lyra screamed as their shuttle shook apart, something inside him snapped. He wasn't just helping strangers anymore. Now he was fighting for them. The shuttle spun violently, and Vera grabbed the side rail as sparks burst from the ceiling. "They hit our left engine," she shouted. "Stabilizers offline." Jax slammed a fist against the panel, cursing. The failing controls. He turned the ship toward a dark moon below. No cities, no signals. Just one long canyon cutting across the surface like a scar. "Hold on," he growled. As gravity pulled them down fast, the shuttle struck the canyon wall, scraping along rock and dirt, and finally skidded to a stop in a cloud of smoke. No one moved for a second. Then Lyra coughed and whispered, "We're alive." Jax kicked open the emergency hatch and climbed out, helping the girls follow. The ground was dry, cracked, and filled with jagged stone above. The enemy ship circled once, then flew away, not landing, not chasing. "That's not right," Jax said. "Why didn't they finish us?" Vera wiped dust from her face, her expression dark. "They don't need to anymore," she said. "They have what they wanted." Jax stared at her, confused. "We still have the key, don't we?" Vera turned to her sister slowly, Lyra's. Hands were trembling, her skin glowing in places it hadn't before. "No," Vera said, her voice cracking. "They took her." "What do you mean took her?" Jax asked, stepping closer. Lyra looked up at him, eyes full of fear and something else, something missing. "They uploaded part of the code," Vera said, "through the last missile. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a signal." Jax clenched his fists, rage boiling under his skin. "So now they have a copy?" "Not the full sequence," Vera said, "but enough to activate something." Jax looked back at the burning shuttle and said, "Then we go after them." Vera didn't answer right away, then finally nodded. "Yes, but we'll need help." Jax walked a few steps away, trying to calm himself, trying to think. That's when he saw the beacon tower, an old machine half buried in the canyon wall. Rusty and ancient, but still glowing. Jax pointed to it. "That thing still work?" Vera followed his gaze and smiled faintly. "It might." Together, they climbed toward the tower, the rock shifting under their feet. Inside, they found a narrow stairwell leading into the dark. Old systems buzzed as they stepped through the cracked doorway. and faint lights blinked to life. Lyra sat near the wall, breathing hard. Her hand pressed against her chest. Vera looked worried, but focused on the console. Tapping carefully, "This place used to be a relay hub," she said. "We can send a message, maybe even scramble their signal." Jack stood beside her, watching her hands move, impressed by how quickly she worked. "You always know what to do," he said quietly. Vera didn't look up. "I was trained for this before I could walk." "And her?" he asked, glancing at Lyra. "She was supposed to be the carrier after me," Vera said, "but she's still just a child in many ways." Jack sat down beside Lyra, offering her his water bottle. She took it with shaking hands and whispered, "I don't want them to use me." "They won't," Jack said. "Not as long as I'm breathing." The console beeped, and Vera smiled. Signal locked. Jack stood and said, "Tell me what to do." "Keep watch," Vera replied. "I'll send the pulse. Scramble their data, and track where they're going next." Jax walked to the open hatch, pipe in hand, eyes scanning the sky. Moments passed slowly, the canyon quiet again. Then the console screen flashed red. Vera's face changed, pale and cold. "What is it?" Jax asked. "They're already decoding," she said. "And worse. They're close." Before Jax could speak, a distant engine roared above. A dropship was approaching fast and heavy. "They're coming for her," Vera said, standing. "Quickly, this time. They won't ask." Jax looked at Lyra, who now stood on her own, her eyes glowing bright blue. She whispered something that chilled him. "I can feel them inside me." Vera opened a hidden compartment in the wall and pulled out a small metal device, circular, strange, and humming softly. "If they try to take her again," she said, "we destroy the code completely." Jax stared at the device, understanding what it meant. "You'll lose everything," he said. "Better than letting them win," Vera answered. Jax nodded. His grip tightening on the pipe, he stood in the doorway, watching as the dropship prepared to land. Behind him, two alien sisters stood side by side, one shaking with fear, the other glowing with power. And above, war had returned to the sky. The dropship opened like a hungry mouth. Wind screamed through the canyon as dust rose in thick clouds, hiding shapes that moved with purpose. Jax didn't wait for orders. He stood tall in front of the tower with nothing but a metal pipe and his bare fists. Behind him, Vera locked eyes with her sister. "Stay behind me, no matter what," Lyra wanted to argue, but her voice caught in her throat. Jax tightened his grip and whispered without turning back, "You both need to survive this, even if I don't." The enemy soldiers emerged, their armor dark and covered in strange symbols. They didn't speak. They just raised their weapons, red lights blinking. At the tips, Vera stepped forward, pulling a device from her belt. It flickered with energy, ready to activate the signal bomb. Jax didn't know what plan she had, but he knew what his job was. He charged first, screaming louder than the engines behind him. The first soldier didn't expect it. Jax slammed the pipe against the helmet with such force that sparks flew. Another grabbed him from behind, but Jax twisted free, taking hits but refusing to fall. Vera shouted, "Now!" and slammed her hand down on the device. A burst of light exploded across the canyon, rippling like a wave through the soldiers' suits. Some froze, some staggered, all confused. Their link was broken. The signal that gave them orders had been scrambled, but it wouldn't last. Jax turned back, limping, blood on his face. "Tell me we're running." "No," Vera said, her voice steady. "We're trading." Jax blinked, confused. "Trading what?" Vera looked at Lyra, then at the soldiers. "They want her, and I know how they think." She raised her arms and shouted, "I have the full code. Take me instead." The soldiers hesitated, unsure, disconnected from their orders. Jax grabbed her arm. "Are you insane?" Vera didn't flinch. "This was always about me. Lyra was never meant to carry this alone." Lyra stepped forward, shaking her head violently. "No, don't. I'm buying time," Vera whispered, her voice almost tender. "You and Jax will escape while they take me. Jax turned to her, breathing hard. That's not compensation. That's suicide. Vera looked into his eyes. I owe you more than payment, human. I owe you a future. One of the soldiers stepped forward, scanning Vera's glowing body, then nodded once. A signal passed through them, and they lowered their weapons slightly, forming a tight circle around her. She walked into their arms without resistance, without fear. Lyra screamed her name, but Vera only smiled back. Remember what we are. The dropship doors closed again, lifting slowly into the sky, and just like that, she was gone. Jax pulled Lyra close, shielding her from the dust and silence. He didn't speak for a long time, not until the stars reappeared overhead. Then he looked at the device Vera had left behind, still glowing faintly. Still alive, she gave herself up, he said slowly. But she left us something. Lyra wiped her tears, her voice suddenly stronger than before. She left us hope. Together they walked back into the tower, where the relay systems flickered. Again, Jax hooked the signal device into the console. We can trace them now, can't we? Lyra nodded, pressing buttons like she was born to do it. The screen showed coordinates, star paths, and encryption codes flooding across the display. Jax watched her work and said, "You're not a kid anymore." She smiled through her sadness. I was never just a kid. They plotted a path, locked in a course, and powered up a hidden escape drone, buried under the tower floor. It was small, barely enough for two, but fast and silent as they lifted off. Lyra whispered to the stars, "We're coming, sister." Jax checked the controls, steering toward the next battle. Let's make her proud. And behind them, the canyon faded into memory. The stars were quiet, but Lyra was not. She sat beside Jax in the tiny escape drone, wires tangled around her wrists like bracelets, her fingers moving fast over the controls. Every second that passed felt like a thread pulling them closer to Vera. Jax glanced at her, unsure if she was scared or just focused. He didn't ask, because he already knew the answer. The girl who once hid behind her sister now flew through space with fire in her eyes. They were heading toward a hidden station orbiting a gas giant, a cone, place known only through old rumors and whispers among smugglers. Lyra called it the Eye, a place where knowledge was stolen, stored, and sold. That's where they took Vera. And that's where Jax planned to end this. As the drone neared the outer rings, sensors blinked red. The space station emerged from the mist like a floating prison, black, broken in places but alive with motion. Guard drones zipped past them, scanning the ship, ignoring them like bugs too small to care about. Jax asked, "Are you sure she's here?" Lyra didn't even look up. "I feel her." That was enough. They docked in silence, stepping onto the cracked platform, the smell of burning gas and rust thick in the air. No alarms, no guards, just silence. Too easy. Jax thought and tightened his grip on the shot baton he found under the drone's floor panel. Lyra led the way, weaving through narrow tunnels lit by blue lights that flickered like dying stars. After 10 minutes, she stopped, her body stiff. "She's here," she said, pointing to a door sealed with symbols that glowed when she touched them. Jax stepped forward and kicked it open with all his strength. Inside was a room glowing with pale green light, walls covered in strange wires and memory tanks. Vera stood in the center, her body suspended in a glass field, eyes closed, light dancing across her skin. Around her stood 3 figures, robed and silent, machines attached to their backs, monitoring her like a specimen. Jax didn't wait. He charged, striking the first one with the baton, sending sparks flying. The others turned, shocked by his presence. But Lyra screamed and slammed a hand onto the nearest panel, overloading it with energy from her wrist implant. The field holding Vera cracked, hissed, then shattered. Vera fell into Jax's arms, weak but breathing. "I told you," he whispered, holding her tight. "I'm not done helping you." Vera opened her eyes slowly. "You came back." "I always do," he said with a grin. One of the robed figures lunged, but Vera's hand shot out, a pulse of raw energy slamming him into the wall like a rag. "Doll," Lyra stepped forward, not scared anymore, her voice steady. "End the transfer. Shut down the core." Alarms finally blared, the station waking up to the threat inside its own heart. Vera pulled out a memory chip from the control panel and crushed it in her hand. "We delete every piece of the code," she said. "No more copies, no more hunters." Jax guided them out as flames sparked behind them, the station tearing itself. Apart from the inside, they reached the drone and launched just as the outer ring exploded in a chain of fire. In the window, the old station broke in half. Spinning into the clouds of the gas giant, silence returned. But this time, it felt different. Vera leaned against Jax, her voice soft. "You risked everything," he smiled, bruised and tired. "You still owe me compensation, remember?" Lyra laughed, the sound light and real for the first time in days. Vera kissed Jax's cheek and whispered, "Then hear it now. You gave us freedom." She said, "You gave us a future. But more than that," Lyra added, "you gave." U.S. family. The drone floated through space, leaving fire and war behind. No gold, no treasure, no reward waited ahead. But Jax didn't care because he'd been paid in something better, something that could never be stolen or broken. And as the sisters leaned against him, warm and safe, he finally understood. This was the compensation they promised from the beginning, the kind that changed a life forever.